Hello and welcome to the Summer of Best Ball with yours truly, Justin Herzig. It is July 19th, and we're only about 6 weeks away from the NFL season starting, only a few weeks away from preseason. Things are heating up, but as you know, all throughout the summer, I'm hosting these Underdog Best Ball streams, bringing on some special guests every Tuesday, Thursday, live on the ETR channel, hosted in partnership with the Owners Club. Coming soon in August, in about 2 weeks, a new way to play best ball and fantasy football. Also, just want to give you a heads up to let people know that everyone who has signed up for the ETR Draft Kit Pro can still get that free $10 on Underdog, both for new and existing users of Underdog. Pro version comes with all of our best ball rankings, content, season-long Dynasty coverage, everything you need. Head on over to the ETR site and claim that $10. And now, with us this afternoon, the man testing fantasy football osmosis by couch surfing with Evan Silva. Spending his time as an analyst for 444. Look at the bet spurts. He's even showing the branding with the shirt today. An FSWA award winner, not Jay Daigle, Mr. John Daigle. How are we doing?
Thank you for the applause and intro. That's terrific. And I just got back from the mountains of Banff as well. I spent all week traveling in Canada, and you could tell because my plant over here is just dead. Not watered whatsoever. So came back with a sloppy background as well. But nonetheless, we are back here in Chicago.
That's okay. Maybe we can get you a cactus. I hear best balls. I hear Underdog sends out some of those for best ball summer. Those,
really? Okay. I need to write an investor email immediately.
I think you had to max out 150 or be John Daigle. So we'll see. I think we can probably, we'll see. If not, I think I still have a couple in the garage. Because it is a cactus, it does not die. And I've always thought that the cactus is like the worst and best gift to give someone because, I mean, it's no management. That's fantastic. But if that cactus dies, that means that person is literally less nurturing than a desert.
And I think the beauty of plants, which I'm just now learning about, since obviously, as you said at the top of the show, I live from my car, couches, hotels and Airbnbs for essentially 2 years. And so I'm just now getting back into having my own place and having the decor the way I want it. And I think the beauty of plants is actually the life and death span. It's kind of a constant reminder and humbling that nothing in this world is guaranteed. And so I don't want my plants to die, but I do understand what happens now if I don't nourish something in my own life. So I think it's a lesson as well.
That's fair, but my fake plants have not died. And it's been like 5 years. So,
that's the other example. Yeah.
Oh, too funny. Well, it is great to have you on. We've actually done a couple best ball streams in the past. I think maybe we did one. What was that? Early this year we jumped on.
We were the first guest on what I dubbed the Best Ball Happy Hour Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern on the 444 YouTube. You were the very first guest I reached out to.
God, it is a long summer, and for me, things are just heating up. I am around 45 or so drafts into the Best Ball Mania. Still have about 100 left for the next 6 weeks or so. What about you?
Yes, I have. I'm definitely think I'm going to max out. I usually reserve my Best Ball Mania 3s for the cardio club, for shows, and then for slow drafts. And so I think probably you said 6 weeks. June, July. Yeah, I guess end of August, I guess, is when I'll get there.
Makes sense. All right. I love it. Yeah. I can't do the slow drafts anymore. It's just too much of a mental toll. Just me thinking like, oh, I need to be drafting. Like, who am I? Like, can't go to bed worrying about, is there an auto draft? Like, that's why I'm in the fast streets. But also, that's why we have these twice a week. And we're going to get another one going. So I will start jumping into an Underdog BBM3. And while we're doing that, let's do chat's favorite game, 2 truths, 1 lie. What do you got for us? Well, seems like we lost you. All right, we're having a little technical difficulties. I think we lost John for a minute. Let's see if we can get him back. Back on the stream. I don't know what happened there.
And I know how to work my own browser. That's okay. If you'd like me to go first and list them all at once or one at a time?
Go through all 3. We got a smart chat room. They'll be able to keep tabs as I'm going to the other tab and get an Underdog going.
All right. 2 truths and a lie. My 3 statements I bring to the table are that 1, I believe Stephon Diggs should be treated as the overall wide receiver 1 and in the same tier and right next to Cooper Kupp and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, if you want to go there. Second statement is that I believe Cam Akers can finish and will be a top 10 back at season's end. And third statement is that I believe Joe Burrow will be a top 5 quarterback at season's end.
I love that. Okay. We also got the 1.1 influencer style. Start thinking what you want to start this off with, but I'll give a first recap there. So we've got Stephon Diggs should potentially be overall WR1. We got Cam Akers can be a top 10 back, and we've got Joe Burrow should be a top 5 QB. So we are going for the some elite plays, some middle tiers, but we think they can make it in that kind of elite range. What do people think? What's the lie? What do we got? So we got Burrow. We got a couple Burrows, couple Akers. Looks like people believe you with the Diggs, but while they're guessing, draft is about to start. What are your thoughts on the 1.01 here?
I don't overthink it. I go Jonathan Taylor. I know ETR has Christian McCaffrey. Totally fine. And half PPR, though, I don't really worry about it. I just take the guaranteed touchdowns in Taylor. And I do understand McCaffrey's ceiling can be higher, but I'll just play it safe and go Taylor.
Yep, I think that's completely fair. And so for me, I personally, in my rankings, I do have ETR. I mean, I do have somebody ETR, Christian McCaffrey as my 1 overall. But for best ball drafts, I am drafting Jonathan Taylor number 1, as long as his ADP continues to stay that clear number 1. And that's more just, yep.
In full PPR, I think I would go McCaffrey. But yeah, half PPR, totally fine going Taylor.
And we're starting to see on some of the sites that have the full PPR, CMC is moving into that like low 2s, 1.8 number. And, when you're at 1.8, that means what? You're going 20% of the time number 1 overall, maybe even a little higher, because if he goes 3-4, that carries it. So like we're starting to see that move a little. But I wouldn't fault anyone. But for me, especially with Underdog, when you have that JT number 1, that's the only way you're going to ever really draft him. So getting that diversification. Okay. Looking through chat here, let me throw some out. So we got Burrows, we got Akers, we got Burrows, we got Akers, we got Burrow, Diggs. Okay, so a couple people actually believe you are lying on the Diggs one. Wide variety. I think you're lying on Burrow, because I think the other two, and like you did say for Akers can finish top 10. Anybody can, of course, but I know your intent. But yes. I see the upside case there. Obviously see the upside case in Diggs. I don't believe you on Burrow. What's the answer?
The correct answer is that Burrow is, in fact, the lie. I think the easy explanation is that, simply put, I have Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, and Dak Prescott over him. But also, if you look at what Burrow accomplished last year, remember, he only finished as the top 10, the quarterback 10 in fantasy points per game. But in leading the league in both yards per attempt and completion rate, the first quarterback to do so since Drew Brees did it in 2017, only 12 quarterbacks have actually averaged over 8.9 yards per attempt on 300 plus passes in the entire Super Bowl area. And those quarterbacks the following year averaged a decrease of 1.8 yards per attempt. And so while I do understand, Pat Thorman, for instance, wrote up the Bengals' pace, especially their pace is important because in the 10 games that Burrow started before the torn ACL, the Bengals actually did have the highest pass play rate from neutral game script, and they were 3rd in the league in plays per game. So I do think there's going to be more voluminous opportunity, but I also think everything that could have gone right for the Bengals did last year. And so I'm actually expecting the entire team, especially in the win-loss column. Maybe that doesn't come back to haunt Burrow's fantasy production, but overall, like I think they're going to be a significantly worse team than last year, actually. So I am definitely fading Burrow and Bengals players, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I definitely hear you there. And I think the bull case really is that once it seems like coach management started having more trust in Burrow, starting having more trust in his leg, that he was fully healthy, they allowed him to start kind of ripping it a little. That was still a very small sample size for what we saw at the end of the season. It's kind of funny how Philly and Cincy basically were the inverse of each other, where Cincy started that year with that run heavy, really protecting Burrow, and then letting him just absolute launch at those, last 4-6 games, while Philly really started as like, hey, we wanted to pass, it didn't work, they went to that run heavy. Both of these teams, it allows us to make a bet on who do you believe is their natural state? Which of the ones do you actually believe they're going to come out with this year? And for me, I'm just not that high on Burrow, because for him to have the type of season that we need him to have where, he's getting drafted, or for him to make the top 5, like he's just going to have unreal efficiency. Yeah, it's possible. We saw it for a few games last year, but we just don't have that, expectation without that rushing floor. Yeah, he might still give us that kind of 20 to 30 games, but there's other options that you listed that I do like better.
That's why I use the term volatility when I talk about them, because people never see the other side of volatility, like the bottom falling out for just 1 year. Like, I still love Joe Burrow, obviously, as a face of the franchise. I still love all the offensive players they have. I still think Zach Taylor's the most overrated and one of the worst coaches in the entire NFL. But overall, like, volatile because it could go either direction. Of course, they could be great. They could be very bad for this year alone, since they were so good last year. So yeah, I prefer to be the other direction, in that I don't really believe in them this year, but I'm also the only person saying that. So don't listen to me. That's totally fine. I don't get paid to agree with everyone, so I don't care.
Yeah, we are coming up. We will definitely dive a little more into the entire Bengals, because obviously fading Bengals is one thing, fading the ADP is another, picking different pieces, etc. We are coming up on the clock. Not surprising. We're going to have a decision to make. Actually, okay, I missed it. Okay, so I was going to say Leonard Fournette has become the decision point here with all the news. He is gone. What are we thinking here?
I usually draft Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman to get somewhat unique here. Pittman, I think, is off the ball. Oh, he's still there. What are we at, 29? Yeah. Because, again, we're trying to get unique with the 101. Let's go ahead and go Tyreek Hill. I don't mind that. And then really it does come down to, do you want like a Leonard Fournette or James Conner in this direction to stir up a superhero RB start, or do you want to nitpick between wide receivers? I like Michael Pittman here. What are your thoughts?
Let's do it. So on a per player basis, I like a lot of these players better than him. I'm looking, all of these, I think straight up, I like as better wide receivers, but I think you're touching on an interesting point where it's not often that people are drafting Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman. And it's probably pretty hard for both of them to have absolute huge stellar seasons at their ADP, but it's not that hard for them to have a couple big weeks. And you could definitely see both those having, if the offense is just that efficient. So when, Tyreek, I think, is a tier above these other guys, Pittman kind of washes in with them. Like, I'm not that confident these guys are that much better. So I like getting a little unique there and getting that correlation.
It also, for Pittman, I prefer to look at players to make sure they have ceilings. Like, have you done this before? Do you actually have the ceiling? And Pittman was the wide receiver 7 in fantasy points per game through week 9. That's when Carson Wentz had a top 6 ADP, and then he became Carson Wentz over the second half of the season. So Pittman has shown us he can easily be a top 8 receiver if all goes well. And now we have Matt Ryan, who's outside of Russell Wilson going to Denver, is the single biggest upgrade in any position in the entire NFL. And Ryan also playing behind the best offensive line of his entire career for the first time ever. So I do still think you can get a Colt stack in Pittman and Taylor and not have Ryan. We can actually go a different direction, even like Tua, for instance, in these builds. So this is kind of like where I like going right now.
Yep. No, I think that's completely fair. If we do take it, I think similarly, a Derrick Henry, like in previous years, Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, you didn't need Tannehill there to still have success. Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson, both could still have great years, and you didn't need to have Kirk Cousins because it's such a highly concentrated offense that we're expecting. They can both thrive without the QB really being there. And a lot of that is, especially Jonathan Taylor, like he gets his points on the ground. He gets his points in the touchdowns. And so predominantly his touchdowns aren't coming with the benefit of being, with Matt Ryan as well. So let's take a quick recap of this draft, because we actually had a pretty interesting first round. So Justin Jefferson 2 overall. I have started to see a few people taking him before Cooper Kupp, and arguably like this could be a season that he does surpass Cooper Kupp there. And then I love seeing teams 2 and 4 with Justin Jefferson and the Kupp just going hard in the wide receivers. What are your thoughts on what we've seen play out so far?
For me, it comes down to where I can get Justin Jefferson, and it's still harder to get Cooper Kupp than it is Justin Jefferson right now, at least on July 19th. So I still take Cooper Kupp in the top 3 whenever I can. preferably at number 3 overall. If Taylor and Christian McCaffrey are gone, I still want them in both 1 and 2 spots, and then Justin Jefferson. But when I create my redraft ranks here in a couple of weeks, whenever I get done with team previews, Justin Jefferson will be my redraft wide receiver 1 overall. And even if Cooper Kupp progresses, like we're expecting still a top 5, top 8 season at worst. So we're not really scared of his regression overall. But we do think Justin Jefferson, after finally leading Adam Thielen, I say finally, it was only 2 years, but led Adam Thielen in targets and more importantly, end zone targets in their 13 games together last year. Now a more up-tempo offense that we expect to play more 11 personnel and throw more overall. So yeah, I do think we are now going to see a ceiling that Justin Jefferson genuinely didn't have in the past. And that's like saying that about a player who had literally the best rookie season ever.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really fun draft. I'm just taking a look at how these play out, but with 2 teams going early, going to 3 wide receivers. Here we've got a 2-3 running back builds in the back half. I've also seen like some stacks playing out with the Buffalo here and Arizona. Where did I see it? You got Connor and Pitts with that correlation aspect. This should be a fun draft. I know we obviously get a lot of sharp drafters with the ETR, so people who are really playing for those stacks, playing for that correlation. Excited to see how this draft plays out.
Dolphins are a little hard to stack too. That's why I don't really end up on much Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle. I also think they're very volatile. Like the fact Devontae Parker out targeted Jalen Waddle when they in their 8 games together, I think it was. Tyreek Hill also, I do like depending on the one-on-one, just the one-for-one talent like a Deebo Samuel. That's why we're not fading him altogether, because he does things that no one else does. Also, Tyreek Hill, it was 2017, but still finished as the wide receiver 5 in fantasy points per game from Alex Smith. Very similar situation to what he's playing in this year. And so at age 30, I still think he can carry his own weight. Jalen Waddle is the one I'm actually very concerned about, because it really comes down to, as a slot receiver, can he get peppered with targets? And I'm genuinely not sure. So again, volatility. I think he literally could finish as a wide receiver 3 and just be overdrafted, but he could also be a top 12 guy.
Yeah, all completely fair. All right, we're in a situation here. We've got 2 running backs at the top from an ADP standpoint. You did mention Cam Akers. You see upside. We could go with a Mahomes Juju stack here as well. And what are you thinking?
I don't have many Chiefs stacks, so I'm okay going Mahomes Juju. I've also been, I feel so, we could do this for the sake of the show. It feels so dirty though, going Mahomes over like Kyler Murray. I think his ceiling this year is just significantly lower than it's ever been. Even over the last 8 weeks last year, Mahomes averaged just 18.8 fantasy points per game compared to over 25 in his first 8 starts, because they had to change their offense to adjust for the 2 high safety looks. And it just became a significantly slower and worse, not worse, because yards per play there and points per drive, they were still just fine, but a significantly slower offense with less volume and less opportunity to go around. And now they don't have a elite wide receiver, in my opinion. That's the issue. And so like if the bottom falls out, if one of these players get injured, they don't really have anywhere else confident to look. I know everyone's high on Sky Moore, but I still worry about Sky Moore. Early declare, yes, but he's still a 2-year MAC receiver. He played 30 career games at wide receiver in college because he was a cornerback recruit out of college. So I think there's the bottom, like no one's discussing that he could just be like a bad player in year 1.
We'll see. It's going to be interesting.
Yes.
This obviously created a bit of a stir yesterday on Twitter, but
I didn't know you tweeted this. That's interesting. Okay.
So yeah, but what I obviously said is, I think it's interesting how people are assuming the Chiefs passing it's going to be substantially worse. Yes, they lost Tyreek Hill. They also lost Byron Pringle. And if you really want to call it DeMarcus Robinson, a loss. They gained Juju, gained Sky Moore, gained MVS. Yes, this is definitely a situation of kind of a quarter versus 3 dimes. But I also like in general, you also expect that there's going to be a replacement level players to also go with Tyreek. And they didn't have that in Kansas City. It literally was just those 2. Mm-hmm. So is there really a situation where we see the Juju from 2 years ago? Sky Moore does actually perform well. And MVS provides us 80%, keeping that actually deep ball as possible. I don't know. I don't know was really why I tweeted this. But I think a lot of people are making the assumption that it's a guarantee that offense is going to be worse from a passing wise.
They were essentially replacing Tyreek Hill since they did pepper him with targets over the second half of the season. They moved him closer to the line of scrimmage. He was no longer a deep threat unless they played the Raiders, since Gus Bradley didn't play in their 2 games against the Raiders. Gus Bradley didn't play a single snap from cover 2 defense. He stuck with cover 3 because he's ignorant and shouldn't have a job in the NFL. And that's why Mahomes was like a top 5 quarterback in those 2 games. But otherwise, outside of that, like, it was hard pressed to find Mahomes finishing as a top 12 option. So I think they tried to replace Tyreek Hill with a bunch of underneath options. Even 80% of Sky Moore's targets came within 20 yards of the line of scrimmage. And so it's just going to be interesting. I don't know how it finishes. I'm betting against it, but perhaps that's wrong since they do have a 47% touchdown percentage in their last 4 years consecutively. Like, they've shown they can figure out ways to score. I think it stops this year, but they've proven it hasn't yet. So I could be wrong.
Could be. And I do think that if this offense is clicking, if this offense is highly efficient and goes back to a 50 touchdown, Patrick Mahomes year, I think Juju's the one that's got to really shine.
Yes, I agree.
Like, the team can be average, or I don't want to say average. The team can be a good team. It can be a mediocre to good team with a combination of Juju, MVS, and Sky all playing like a certain role. Maybe Kelsey gets his volume, and then we spread out the rest. But I think for it to really reach that top level, that echelon, it needs Juju to really shine and turn into probably like a top 12 wide receiver.
And I still love MVS. I still think MVS has the best ADP of all of them. I think Juju's ADP, while rich, is totally fair given what he's shown in the past. It's been now 3 years since he's done that, but he's still shown he does have top 12 potential as a possession receiver, which is what I think they're going to ask him to do from the slot. And so overall, definitely, like, these players can easily reach their floors.
Yeah, love it. Hi. And I mean, hey, we do have that Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, Juju fake correlation. So maybe that'll come back and give us a little karma boost at the end.
And again, it's easy to get MVS, Mecole Hardman, if we want to go to that route, who would have to step in if someone gets injured. Even Sky Moore, like, we can get all these players. So that's no big deal.
Yep, that 96, 97 is where a lot of the times you can get at least one of the Sky Moore or MVS. So we'll keep an eye on that pick as it starts coming up. Coming back around, let's get a quick refresh. So the 2 teams that went through wide receiver, one went tight end wide receiver, one went with the running back, getting that Cam Akers falling value, which was nice. The 2 teams that went through running back went through wide receiver, tight end, and again, the Dobbins. I was able to get Dobbins at 74, I think, earlier today. It's going to be interesting to see how that report versus his clapback ends up playing out.
My issue with Dobbins is the ADP, but again, you got him at a discount. So I'd have to look at what players are in that range. But right now, when you look up, or before at least, and Kyler Murray, Adam Thielen, Russell Gage, like, they're still all on the board. I'm never taking Dobbins over those individuals, especially because we don't know about his health. Oh, let's go ahead and make our pick here real quick.
Yeah, so we have those 2 running backs that we just don't love, but Jacobs is a bit of an ADP value, or we can start hammering some more wide receivers.
I think wide receiver is good. Drake London. And then let's have a DeAndre Hopkins discussion and a Hunter Renfrow discussion.
Okay.
Unless you like Treylon Burks, clearly.
But I think we could probably get him next if we wanted. I mean, our ADP is 96, 97. So sure. I'm not going to reach for him above ADP. I love Hopkins in this. So usually when I draft Hopkins, I'm doing it when my wide receivers aren't as strong. We're just going to have to accept that our running back. Oh, is there a Dalton situation?
Let's go Schultz. Yes. That's ADP value as well.
Okay. That's the only reason I'm considering it, is we're so strong at wide receiver. So Hopkins just doesn't fit into this build. I can talk a little more about that in a minute, but I'm not on Dalton Schultz, but we did get a little value here. And there just wasn't a great other fit.
We got nearly a full round value, and that's usually the tier drop off where then I start waiting at tight end. Like, I don't even hate Zach Ertz and Dawson Knox, but I would just much rather wait and grab 3 or 4 at the very end of that jumble between Tunyon, Irv Smith, Evan Ingram, yada yada. Yeah,
completely agree. And what's interesting with this build right now is because we only have 1 running back, we are probably going to need to finish this with like a 5 or 6 running back build.
That's okay.
And so since we're expecting to devote that much capital to the running back position, it's good to now have an option to maybe only have 2 tight ends. We're only going to have 2 QBs because we drafted Mahomes, but now we're at least giving us a little more flexibility with that tight end position too.
And the top 6 guys, I include Schultz in that. I do have confidence going only 2 tight ends. When we get to the Hawkinsons, the Goddards of the world, I do prefer 3.
Yeah. Well,
in tournaments, not in 6-man. 6-mans, I'll still do 3 with Goddard. But
I'm just not drafting the Hawkinsons and the Goddards. And
that's very true as well. Yeah.
So it's like, I agree with you. If I did, I'm probably drafting 1 and then going 2 very late. But more likely, I'm in the situation where I'm starting with a Gesicki, with an Irv Smith, and then drafting 2 more later.
So I mentioned London, who we grabbed, and Renfro. And what I've been doing is that when I don't get Kyle Pitts or Darren Waller, I've been hedging those situations and getting London or Renfro, because in the instances where Pitts and Waller don't live up to ADP, it's likely because London and Renfro are above ADP. Renfro, for instance, last year, 5 fewer fantasy points per game, 4 fewer targets per game, whenever Darren Waller played at 30% of the snaps or less. So, like, we know Renfro is the option, and we had Devontae Adams and all this. We expect him to carry his own weight. But Renfro obviously has much more advantageous opportunity if Waller's out of the picture, as he proved last year. Same for London. I don't expect London and Pitts to get there. If Falcons are a very bad team, they're not going to score many touchdowns. They're not going to score many points. They're not going to move the ball much. And so one or the other. And so if I miss out on Pitts, it's fine. I just go London thinking, okay, he trumps Pitts. No big deal.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would say I haven't seen getting it as much Renfro, even though I'm bullish on the offense. I'm just not drafting that much Derek Carr because of the lack of rushing upside.
Right.
And then Devontae's still pretty expensive, often getting what I call overdrafted, even though there's only a couple picks and stuff. So, but I am getting a lot of Waller. And I think Waller just is being drafted in that kind of, he falls and you get a little of that dead value where when you're comparing against who else is out there. And that probably keeps me off of Renfro a bit. Drake London I love, and I'm drafting so much Kyler that Drake London is my most common bring back for that week 17 correlation.
That makes a ton of sense, yes. I still run back like Cordero Patterson at times. Sometimes I backdoor a Kyle Pitts, but I still think Kyle Pitts is like one of the most egregious ADPs, and not for the type of ceiling he has, but the fact you can get Kittle and Waller 2 rounds later most times, that disparity to me is just wrong, because that's basically everyone stamping that Pitts certainly has a higher ceiling than Waller and Kittle, and I don't think that's true even 40% of the time. So I just don't have much Pitts.
Yeah, I think like Pitts is just so much different of a situation than Kittle. I mean, Pitts may average, 3 more targets a game than Kittle, like across the season? Like that wouldn't shock you. Kittle's just, his weekly and his season variance is just so wide. For me personally, I just don't think Trey Lance is going to be throwing that often. I think it is going to be a bit of a slower but highly efficient team focused on the run. And, you know, we even saw last year, like Kittle had some comments where he was talking very highly about Jimmy G whenever the Trey Lance conversation was happening. There's maybe a little like he knows that Trey Lance just doesn't throw as pretty of a ball, or at least just didn't. And then maybe he has to be used for blocking more often too, which is always a possibility.
But my refute is more of a safety one, which we're not going for safety, I understand, in a top heavy payout large field tournament like this. But the fact that Kittle has not finished outside the tight end 4 in fantasy points per game since 2018, and has also led his position in yards per route run since 2018. Like Pitts, there's scenarios I can see at least where he's like tight end 8 or falls out of the top 5. Where Kittle, I just think, is so safe because he does have the explosive games in his bag.
I think these are 2 easy picks for us. Hammer the KC stack at a position of need and a Sky Moore who we want.
Sure.
And I'm not huge on the CEH train this year. I do think there are some substantial risks, but this is pick 97, ADP 86. We're getting about a round of value there on a player who fits our build. Position of need. Like it's just the right pick.
Where do you expect him to end up? Because I imagine he's still dropping due to the Jarrett McKinnon signing.
I think he's dropping honestly more because of the Rojo news. Like there was the Rojo blurb that came out and said that, Rojo is going to compete for, RB1 touches. And so I think this fear that's worried about Jarrett McKinnon is pretty small. I'm in it. But I don't think that's as impactful. So I would say I wouldn't even say – so I think he's going to continue dropping over the next small amount of time, but not that much. And then even like Adam in his most recent pod said hey, he's starting to grab him and catch that floor. I think he's just going to be very volatile over the next few weeks to a month on any report that comes out. We'll see someone's running with the ones. CEH now may go back the other way. Like, people are so desperate, as they should be, to get a piece of the KC offense. Mm-hmm. And so if we can have any signs, anything that hints towards this is going to be the one who's getting the goal line, this is the one who's going to be running with the ones, I think that's huge. Pass catching role, like, it's just so funny how when he was drafted, we love that pass catching role. We thought that was going to be his primary, like, bread and butter, and we just didn't see it last year. And maybe it has to do with this whole, the weight loss and the injury that he was recovering from last year. We'll see. It gives me a little hope that can increase his upside, the bull case. But yeah, I mean, I'm probably just one of those guys that, hey, it's going to fit my build and I'll take him at value.
Yeah, I was fine with his ADP in the high 70s before the McKinnon signing, but also McKinnon did outplay him, out-touched him, out-carried him, out-targeted him in the playoffs, but also CEH was banged up, and McKinnon only had 12 regular season carries. It literally took him to the postseason when no one else was healthy to get McKinnon the ball. So I go back and forth. I don't expect McKinnon to be a breakout. I'm fine with him in the 15th, 16th round still, just in case. But yeah, it does damper CEH's pass catching role a little bit since McKinnon was so good at it for that 3-game stretch.
Yep, completely fair.
That, and we don't expect CEH to have a goal line role either. If you recall, pandemic season against the Texans, this is the first football night I was living with Silva. CEH got 7 carries inside the 10-yard line, didn't score on a single one. Since then, since week 2 of his rookie year, only 5 career carries inside the 5-yard line. He doesn't get goal line carries at all. He's already been pigeonholed out of that role. That's where I think Ronald Jones actually comes in, a la James Conner of last year.
That could be. That's why it's scary. If you're not getting the goal line and you're not getting the pass catchers, then
what the hell do you do?
Doing?
Yeah.
Right. Now,
what would you say you do here?
That one game was just so bad. Like, and it felt like it was far more of an offensive line, but then also CEH just looked so small, an inability to just even push anyone over. He was getting hit a little at the line or behind the line of scrimmage, but interesting how that one game tilted. And hey, he also weighed 30, 40 pounds, whatever it was, less than he actually said he should. So maybe that changes things. I'm willing to – yeah.
And I was sorry to cut you off. He only played 55 third down snaps in total last year, too. So they took him off the field for that role, too. So, again, it fits our build, and it was around beyond ADP. That's our argument. It's not even – our argument's not even for the player whatsoever.
It's the value, and it's the team.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to say that, hey, like, all the data may suggest that he is not the play, but also he is still on Kansas City, and he still plays a role he still plays a position that can be very valuable. And so all you need is 1 or 2 injuries. All you need is 1 or 2 things that change that we're not expecting. And now that's an extremely valuable Damian Williams type, a la San Francisco Super Bowl year. That changes. Yeah. Should have won the MVP that game.
He should have.
Hi, we're coming back around. Let's get a quick refresher on what our build looks like right now. We have a 1-2-5-1 Mahomes with the Schultz. We've got JT and CEH. We are pretty strong at wide receiver. That doesn't mean we're stopping, though. Looking at the board right now, probably too early to be considering any QB. Neither of us really like the tight end situation, at least not worth reaching if we see other value out there. A lot of running backs at the top of the board. Any of these that really jump out at you?
Gosh. Melvin Gordon is below ADP and fits the Chiefs Week 17 stack.
Yep, I agree there.
Rashad White's way above it. Well, we wouldn't be reaching too far above ADP. It depends what kind of running backs we're looking for now with Jonathan Taylor, honestly. Like, we still need some upside to fill our RB2 role.
I think I'd honestly go with the Patterson and the Gordon.
I like Cordarrelle Patterson. That's fine.
Okay. And so Gordon, agree with you, that Week 17 correlation. Patterson, one of the few things that, hey, when you see a player who has been able to put up so many points in the game, 20, 25 plus and such, and we don't expect him to have that role. And yes, there was a report that came out that says he's probably not going to have as much volume. But the thing is, in the past, we've seen it. And he has so many ways to get there, based as a running back, wide receiver, gadget player, whatever. And we also do have the Drake London. So, yeah, you don't want to have too many pieces of a bad offense. But what if we're wrong and that Atlanta offense is actually really good? It's great to have probably two of the three guys that are going to have the most touches in that offense.
The volume would be nice, but it's not even that I care about. Like when he returned from injury, he averaged 5 fewer targets per game. They literally started using him as a between the tackles bruiser. And that's like what the Bears tried to use him at. And he's bad. He's always been terrible at that role. Whereas before he was averaging 5.5 targets per game prior to injury, he was a pass catching back. That's what allowed him to be a top 12 player at his position. So I really just want that first half of the season role, not the injured like running back role that he's always been terrible at.
Yeah, completely fair. And I mean, hey, you could see him honestly being a wide receiver too in that offense and getting a ton of value there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Combined with like it could be a Debo light situation. And on a worse offense, but an offense that defense is bad. They're going to be throwing a bunch. They're going to be playing catch up. There's lots of ways for him to get there.
Totally. So far, so good though. I know our RB2 filling it out isn't sexy, but it all correlates at least for us so far.
Yeah, and hey, we knew when we were waiting, basically we had a chance to draft one of those male running backs in the Josh Jacobs, Antonio Gibson. And once we passed on that, we knew like we weren't going to have the steady, consistent RB2. So instead, we're looking for guys that have upside that can provide us with those weekly spikes and increased role. And look at this ADP value we've been stacking. So a round of value there, round of value there, round of value there. Wide receivers have been more for our stacks and stuff and maybe small reaches, round of value there, almost around. If Overzet was on, he'd be calling us value hounding right now.
We got the influencer 101 and value hounding.
Yeah.
I also wonder how many people have Jonathan Taylor, Chiefs onslaught, and Melvin Gordon week 17 run back. So I keep thinking about, hopefully, I believe we're getting unique as well.
Yeah. And I mean, that KC Denver, we know that game can obviously explode. Arizona, Atlanta, we've got two pieces there.
Yep.
Maybe able to grab another late one or two there. And then Indy, doesn't make sense. Like, do we grab a Daniel Jones later or something as a stack for that correlation? Like, I'm always high on Daniel Jones. There's lots of, it's like, I guess we're wide receivers a little early. So obviously Galladay's gone. He's like a 120 ADP. There's still like a Wandell Robinson if you want to get more pieces of that action on the side.
That's usually what it has to be whenever you miss the boat on the Galladay tier. It's Wandell and Daniel Jones. So Daniel Jones is still going at a really good ADP, one that he could easily top, especially with rushing upside. Like if Daniel Jones outscored Derek Carr, it would not be the most shocking thing to happen in fantasy football this year.
And even in another view of that same argument is if Daniel Jones has more 25 plus games than Derek Carr, that also can help our team where we don't need him maybe to have, like he can still have those 10-point games, those 12-point games where he has 2 fumbles and 2 interceptions. And like we have Mahomes for those, but we're looking for those spike weeks specifically from someone like Daniel Jones with that rushing floor, with the high powered offense and the overall kind of range of outcomes that come with Daigle and that new coaching staff and everything.
Right. Also, if you look at the Giants secondary, you'll realize that Daniel Jones is going to have to throw a lot because it's maybe the worst in the league.
And an extreme improvement in the offensive line as well to help him. So that's one thing that just an overall bet on that offense. All right. One other thing I'm looking at now as we're coming up is there's a couple different tight ends that may be in play as well. So we have Schultz with the bye week 9. Albert, okay. So if we look at tight ends here, Gesicki's at the top of it, value. Albert O gives us that correlation again for the Denver. We would have to go we don't have to go with a third tight end, but we do have bye week troubles there. Gesicki maybe is a tier above Albert O though. I probably think he is. We have a lot of, we have the Tyreek. What are your thoughts? We got 6 seconds.
I prefer Albert O.
No, we don't want Hines.
No. We can go Gesicki. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. Okay.
We have the little Dolphin stack. So maybe we can slam a Patriots wide receiver. I do like Kendrick Bourne a lot later on. Okay. So what are we looking at here? We got Devontae Parker. Yeah, I like Devontae Parker.
Get that little mini.
Not a sexy ceiling, but still the average 7.5 targets per game from Tua, like as a high floor option. That's okay.
Yeah, I like it. And yeah, I'm not drafting Nyheim Hines when I have Jonathan Taylor on the team. There are other handcuff stacks that I do like, but if I'm committing first overall capital to my running back, probably not going to be grabbing Nyheim Hines unless it's substantial value.
Well, especially because of this build, we're going to need at least 5 RBs, and we're going to need them to produce. So we can't really afford Nyheim Hines.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. All right, so let's get a refresher on the team. Probably missed out on Daniel Jones when we didn't grab him there, but it would have been a reach on him. Maybe he falls, but also I'm not a fan of reaching for my number 2 quarterback when we invested so highly in someone like Mahomes.
Yeah.
Running backs, as you said, I think 5. I think we maybe be grabbing 2 more here. These just don't have the level of consistency that we're looking for. And we have been, we do have very strong wide receivers. So if we don't need to go too heavy there, are you fine with just Schultz and just Gesicki here?
I'm fine with that if you are.
I think so. Unless like we grabbed a QB and hey, you found that stack partner at the end, maybe. But to me, this is looking more like a hey, 2 QB, 2 tight end, maybe like a 2-6-8-2 build.
Is 2 is already gone, right? Like we're way beyond then?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Yep. Yeah, 2 could work, but let's see. He probably would.
I mean, Mac Jones could work too.
Mac Jones can. I mean, to be honest, Matt Ryan can.
Matt Ryan obviously can, yeah.
We have the Pittman. We have the Jonathan Taylor. That's probably who would
we can always slap on Wandale to add to it.
Yeah. I mean, we got Daniel Jones still at the top. I'd probably put Matt Ryan as my second here. Nothing with the Trevor Lawrence. Don't need to get involved there. We do have the Mac Jones we can keep an eye on.
Just in case, yeah.
If we miss out, yeah.
And he wouldn't even need to be drafted at this next turn, I don't think. So
he'd be right at ADP.
Okay.
So 68, 69.
All right. We'll play with that, see what happens. What range of running backs are we in now?
All right. So we're in this range that I love because I'm always a fan of, hey, when we need next stack, the Herbert, the Tyrion Davis-Price, the Gus Edwards through Jamal Williams, and that's where I probably take a bit of a break.
Mm-hmm.
We do have that McKinnon down here. I wouldn't hate if we wanted to grab McKinnon as our 6th running back to go with this.
That's a good idea.
And in that situation, like we're getting that ping pong aspect from the playoffs, which is good for these tournaments. If maybe one running back goes off one week, one goes off the other. We didn't invest crazily heavily in, CH or anything. So taking 2 from that same backfield, I think is beneficial. So we'll keep an eye as that goes as well. Decent place for us to be able to grab a QB and a running back here, going into the kind of 6th, 15th, 16th round.
Yeah, I like where we're at so far. And again, I think Wandale would be really good for this team. When we get to the later rounds, we are obviously looking for low rostered players that aren't being expected much, that also correlate. So we'll see what we have with that.
I'm a little seeing if there's any other interesting builds. Simo here with a 1-4-8-0. That's an interesting one. Let's see what that's playing out here. So started off with a strong LAC stack with Eckler, Keenan Allen, and Herbert. Interesting grabbing Leonard Fournette here, given all the news. I have been starting to see him drop to the early 3rd. Zeke, Josh Jacobs. Okay, I'm seeing a theme among these running backs here. Eckler's strong. Then we're liking some of those old steady guys. So I understand why you're only going 4. Probably best to stay with that 4. A lot of wide receivers. Tight end will be interesting here with starting with the Gerald Everett. But if you only have the 4, so just went with the first tight end. But if you only have the 4 running backs, you can definitely devote to your other positions.
And Simo, I think, Gerald Everett, I guess, is his tight end 1 now. But again, he's going to go 3 or 4. So, yeah.
And he gets that stack partner for the Chargers.
Yeah. And the case for Gerald Everett writes itself. Justin Herbert, top 3 ADP at his position. Just grab the tight end who we expect to take Jared Cook's role. There you go.
Yeah. I don't think Donald Parham disappears. And I think Donald Parham is still going to see maybe like those 20 snaps a game, kind of playing that occasionally an end zone role.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're drafting Gerald Everett, you just have to make a bet that he's going to be that primary tight end that's getting the majority of the work. And I'm not the highest on him in ETR. I know we have his rank a little low. We were actually talking about earlier this morning, bringing him up a little. But I don't think it's a bad draft pick, especially when you were getting a little value on him and you're stacking with your Justin Herbert.
Cool.
All right. KG. Oh, I saw it. That was only all right, so we lost out on Matt Ryan there. May have been just an auto pick. Let's see that frustration. What do we have here? Did you have anything else? Maybe we could see. All right, Mac Jones makes sense.
Unless you have Michael Pittman, I don't think. Oh no, we have Michael.
No, we do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I don't. There's no way. Yeah. Yeah.
He didn't have anything. That was just maybe even an auto pick, best available. That's
probably. Fine. Yeah.
All right, those running backs went off the board. Bit of an ugly case after Mac Jones.
What other wide receivers are available?
We're at that kind of zone where just like everyone is anyone. I don't hate Jamal Williams. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't hate Jamal Williams. And Jarrett McKinnon, this is too early.
Yeah, I would say
because his ADP we know is still like off.
Yeah. I would go with the Jamal, and then hope that in the next one we can get like a Wan'Dale Robinson, Jarrett McKinnon, that just fit our builds. From an ADP, we'd still be drafting them above their ADPs, or Wan'Dale right at it, McKinnon a bit above, and those fit our builds. But yeah, and so the Jamal Williams one for me is this is just a bet on Detroit actually being better than we expected. Division isn't great. The team has made substantial improvements, and Jamal actually wasn't that bad last year. And so if DeAndre Swift doesn't actually, be the ground and pound running back, Jamal Williams can work, squeak himself out an actual role. And if DeAndre Swift does get hurt, maybe there's opportunity to take down some of that passing down because we know he can catch him.
Yeah, no. Jamal Williams averaged 12 touches in the 10 games he played behind DeAndre Swift, and then 19 touches in 3 games without him. So, like, Jamal Williams is just fine. Like, he's your typical 2 to 3 down workhorse that is a direct backup and probably provides some spot starts if Swift goes down. It's totally fine.
Yeah. It's interesting. So, like, Khalil Herbert, Jamal Williams. Khalil Herbert, we think, is a better talent. He's definitely a little younger, but that Chicago offense is so bad. And I think it's a pretty similar situation when I'm looking at draft picks. Like, I've been drafting Khalil Herbert higher, but that's one of the situations where I can talk myself into that. Like, hey, Jamal Williams maybe actually should be in that tier with the Khalil Herbert, with the Gus Edwards. Definitely above that next tier below, where it's like kind of just we're not even sure what role they would have with an injury ahead of them.
Yeah, and this is not the regime that drafted David Montgomery, who is on the final year of his rookie deal. I imagine they probably won't bring him back either. And so it's possible, just like in Minnesota, we don't expect Alexander Mattison to have like a small role behind Dalvin Cook because he never did, but it's a new coaching staff. So we can't guarantee that. What if Khalil Herbert does have a small little role providing 8 to 10 touches per game? We also know he's very good if given spot starts for Montgomery. So yeah, I don't mind Herbert at all. I've been drafting a lot of Herbert because he's in this range, like you said, where I don't think he should be. Like, he should be grouped up a little bit higher.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right, Alex Berg, commonly in the chat, took Wan'Dale Robinson there. Bit of a reach, but knew that the turn there wasn't going to fall back to him. Let's see, did he had the Daniel Jones. Makes sense that he grabs for the Wan'Dale Robinson. He may have waited till 204 if we weren't on stream, but I think knowing what Wan'Dale's ADP is 192, that was the right choice for him to take him there.
I know there are a lot of bullets in Best Ball Mania 3, but given how many streams and shows we all do, like, a streamed draft has to win, has to take this thing down, right?
Oh, I don't know. I was going to put out a little engagement farming tweet later is, what do we think the odds are that someone who maxes out 150 wins the BBM3?
10%.
That's, I think, right around what I was looking at.
And that might be too high, honestly.
it's not that much different than like actually, I think it's even less than a traditional GPP because it's so easy for someone just to submit 150 lineups if they're spending an hour at their computer.
Yeah.
150 drafts, like it's a lot. There's not that many people actually doing it. We'll see. Okay, we're coming back.
Oh wait, yeah, I'll ask you in a second. So let's see here. Yep, Jared McKinnon works out perfectly. Oh, God, we're this ugly receiver, ugly range.
I'm bullish on David Bell, and especially with some of the news that's coming out. And it's not really news; it's just kind of new takes and more interpretation of data and stuff.
Yeah.
But like maybe Deshaun's suspension isn't actually that long, and
I like Donovan Peoples-Jones for the same reason. Like I think DPJ is the one who wins if Deshaun Watson plays any amount at all.
Okay.
As the outside receiver, he was the starting receiver in 2 wide sets in minicamp, as you know. David Bell is going to be playing from the slot, but I think DPJ's profile as a deep threat, like no one else on that team can do what he does.
Yeah, and so I guess the downside there is when Watson's not playing, I think DPJ's kind of
he's fodder. He's absolutely useless. Yeah,
right. Where I think David Bell for the slot could actually play, and just to make sure, Kendrick Bourne did already get drafted. That would have been another player that we were looking at.
Yeah, I love Kendrick Bourne.
Okay, so we're at a 2-6-7-2. Probably finish it off with another wide receiver here. Yep. We got Mahomes, Mac Jones, no tight end that's really worth considering. Don't want to bring in a Jonnu. So I think it's just best wide receiver that fits with what we're trying to do here. Any thoughts to who that might be based off these kind of mini stacks or overall correlation?
I don't like Patriots receivers beyond Kendrick Bourne. Like I don't like dipping to the Thorntons and the Aguilars of the world. That's the only issue. Gosh, you've been drafting Justin Ross.
I'm just putting some in here that maybe actually I got one guy that I would maybe consider.
Oh, okay. Justin Watson apparently performed better at camp than Justin Ross did. Justin Ross also undrafted. I very much worry about him, whereas Watson has succeeded in the NFL and the rare chance he got an opportunity with the Bucs.
Speaking of the Bucs, have you been drafting any of Perryman? Doesn't fit our bill, but just made me think about it. And
I actually haven't.
I think he's someone who's getting overlooked. I've started taking him a little, especially whenever I have Brady. But we saw at the end of that season, like even though he wasn't getting substantial targets, he was still playing very high levels of snaps. And it seems like he was slowly building a little bit of a rapport with Brady. I wouldn't be shocked if when Godwin's out, Perryman actually takes a bit more of a starter role with 3 wide sets.
I don't hate it. The only thing is I think Cedric Wilson and then either Ross or Watson fit our build.
100%. You just mentioned that Justin Watson made me start thinking of the Perryman. Wanted to throw that
that's
out.
Good point, though. I haven't been taking any Perryman, so I should put him on my Week 18 bullets that I don't expect to do anything, or round 18. These random guys I'm just drafting.
I'm pretty sure AJ Green's already gone, but Cardinals would be another one because we do have a couple of the Atlanta.
So if we don't get Green, then
really
it would be Antoine Wesley if we don't get Green.
Yeah, Green's already gone.
Cool.
Yeah. And then so otherwise, if I'm just looking at best available types, I did tweet out yesterday, if anybody remembers Laviska Shenault, just not being named at all. Again, not for this build.
I mean, we have Jamal Williams. There's Byron Pringle there, but Byron Pringle, I think, is pretty heavily drafted for a round 18 player.
I would go for, if I'm getting that correlation, I'd go for either one of these.
I didn't think about that. I mean, no one drafts N'Keal Harry.
Did you know that Velus Jones is older than N'Keal Harry?
I did not, but that's not shocking at all.
Rookie versus burned out first-round wide receiver already getting traded.
5 of the Bears' 7 draft picks, I think that's the stat, on offense, are 25 years old at least. Like they for some reason went old prospect. No idea why.
Win now? Yeah, I really don't know. I threw in DuVernay and Washington, which I think are just kind of BPA best player available.
And I've only been doing DuVernay or Tylen Wallace when I have Lamar Jackson. Like I don't really add them otherwise.
Agreed. I think that makes sense, and that's why
I don't know how
ADP
often they hit. Like I was looking at, I just got done my Ravens team preview, and like I think DuVernay's now played 33 career games and hasn't eclipsed 50 receiving yards in any of them. Like that's not good.
And it's a classic example where we're drafting for the number 2 wide receiver position when there's a very good chance that's just not going to be his role. And if it is, it's just not that valuable of a role. It reminds me of last year we were trying to figure out who was the Atlanta wide receiver number 2 after the Ridley news. And let's see, who were the guys we were thinking of? We were trying to get Zacchaeus.
Olamide Zacchaeus for sure. Yeah. Russell Gage was the one who won out.
Yep. But Gage was even big. Yeah, Zacchaeus. I feel like Zacchaeus, and I thought there was one of those getting drafted like very late and just.
Was it Christian Blake or?
Yeah, Christian Blake. Okay, that was Okay.
All these bums, all the same guys.
Cedric Wilson's probably the one on mine.
He has a role. He definitely has a role in 11 personnel. So like we have to get the guy who has a role.
And you've got Tyreek Hill and you have Gesicki. You're basically, there's a correlation aspect where maybe Jalen Waddle gets hurt and now all the other players elevate.
Yeah.
Good with Wilson?
Yep. Good with Wilson. I think it makes sense.
Let's do it. All right. Let's go back. That was the 48th draft of mine. Let's take a look. All right. So we had Mahomes. We had Mac Jones. Got to feel pretty good about QB whenever you have Mahomes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Running backs after JT. We knew it was going to be a little of a mix and match here. We did well with our bye weeks with this never too much overlap. And I'd say what? 2 guys here that maybe are going to have some weekly upside. Have some like weekly value. And then 3 guys here that can all maybe find themselves a really solid role.
Yes. And again, I think we are trying to also be unique with Jonathan Taylor from the 101. So I think, I do think Chiefs onslaught with the backup running back to the starting running back, like trying to win that running back position is also unique with Taylor.
Yeah, completely agree. And wide receivers, I have no complaints. They fit our build. They are strong wide receivers. I'd say these are lower of our, usually I try to end drafts with a little better than this, but the thing is we invested so heavily in Tyreek and Pittman and Juju that I'm okay with sacrificing some tail end value or some tail end picks.
Totally fine with it.
And here, we're not winning the league with our tight end, but we're not losing it with the tight end either. So it is what it is, and we got a little value with both picks.
I think it went pretty well, actually. And, again, unique for a 101 draft.
Yeah, I like that, too. So we got a couple things we can root for. We got some Chiefs. We got some Colts. We got some correlation. I like it. Let's take a look. So we'll go with John Warner. Roto run over here and one at the end of the draft. Let's sauce that 3rd running back of his. Let's do a quick evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
Let me know what you think of Roto Run's team. There we go, from the 11th spot.
So robust RB start. 3 quarterback I already have an issue with. I don't think it's 3 RBs I have an issue with. Like Fields and Lawrence, you probably should just go with them. You don't need Goff for that. But no, Cook, Harris, and Kamara. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, I agree with that. I honestly would not have grabbed Dobbins here. No. While I like Dobbins, I think, there's a chance that his ADP is falling. So even though this seems like value, it may not have been that much of value. And you've already committed so much to the running backs here. Hold off on that and just get either 2 very late ones or just one in that, that middle range that we were talking about earlier. Even like a Kenneth Gainwell would be a great addition to this. Yes.
A player that we think at least will be there for week 1. A player that is going to be healthy.
And will be on the field. Because you want for the Kamara situation, definitely get that. But for me, it's if I'm drafting 4 running backs and I spend here, I want a guy that's not Alexander Mattison, who's going to have a whole bunch of zeros and maybe some upside. I want a guy who's going to have 10 to 12, 10 to 14 each week. So then if, Kamara does miss 1 or 2 games, there is an injury, I'm not taking zeros.
Completely agree.
All right, wide receivers. We knew this is going to be a little iffy after spending a lot of capital up top, but you got Scary Terry. reaching on Burks. I love Burks, but we are seeing some reaches here without what are we doing here, John?
Yeah, you should have, John. That third quarterback definitely should have been reserved for wide receivers. We got 2 free agents. We got Jameson Williams, who may not even be healthy. Curtis Samuel's a question mark. There's just a lot of question marks.
Yeah, I think so.
To be on the field, that's the issue. Like, player analysis is one thing, but to be on the field is not. That's like just a fact. We have 2 free agents in this group.
Yeah, and then we've got reaches on wide receivers that aren't stacking with your QBs, and so Chicago, Jacksonville, Detroit. I'm not seeing any stacks here.
It's not even game stack since Tennessee plays Dallas. So yeah, there's some issues here, John. We support you, but these are some issues.
Good job on the first 3 picks, John. We can go to Twitter. We can talk about the rest of it. It's okay. I'm sure you were a little distracted. There's some really good commentary going on from Mr. Daigle over here. But no, this was fun. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If there is, let's see. Anyone else that does want to chat more best ball, has a question, once their draft's rated, join me in that Jolly Jokers Discord. I'll put the Discord link in chat. After my show on Thursday, we had some good back and forth about some of the other drafts in the room, so I can take some time and talk more there. John, where can people find you? Anything else you have going on that people should be aware of?
Yeah, 4for4.com. Like Evan Silva, my roommate, I am also writing team previews over there. So if you just want a different spin on something, right now we do have our 10% discount early bird if you get in before August 1st, since we're all about to lose our personal lives and lock down for the entire year. So that's where you can find me. The Denver Broncos one is free and it's up if you just want to check out an initial run of what you would be getting with a sub. So everything is over there. And Justin, of course, I appreciate everything you do.
This is awesome. Well, it was great having you. Always great chatting with you. You brought a ton of insights, a ton of information to this show. Everyone in chat, enjoyed having you there. I will see you all again Thursday when we have another great show planned. Fun special guest also from 4for4. Just a little tease there. All right. We will see you all later. Enjoy the rest of your day.